Yeah.
Now, if you still buy a Corvette, but maybe.
No, Lee did.
Thank you.
I did.
Lee cares. He thought I could get it out of control. I can.
Oh, the down one on the lefty. I'm on the wrong side of everything.
I don't want to sit there about it.
We're not going to touch that one. Okay, it's 7 o'clock.
6:59. Now it's 7.
Of course, then I've got to go.
07.
Now 07. It was 1900. Yes. All right, it's 7 o'clock in the evening, aka 1900 military time. We're going to start the Gardner City Council meeting and bring it to order. Can you please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We were going to have a presentation. We were going to have a presentation this evening from Amy Nasta on the governing body rules of procedure. So meeting, if that's acceptable to the body. We're just going to have that deferred until the next meeting, and I don't think that's going to give us a couple more weeks to kind of go over what we're looking at for changes, so that's not a bad thing. Secondly, neighborhood revitalization plan for the city of Gardner. Larry Powell, Business and Economic Development Director, is going to be doing a presentation. I'm interested in hearing what he has to say. Good evening, Larry.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So tonight we're going to discuss a program that the city has had in its past, and this is a short review of that before we have the public hearing aspect of this. The Gardner Neighborhood Revitalization Program was started in 1997, and it was good for 10 years. It sunsetted in 2007. During that 10-year time frame, participants could take part by applying to participate in the program and either building new or making a sufficient addition to their facility that a certain percentage of improvement of value was gained. And once that was approved and it was accepted by the city, then they could participate by getting a rebate. This is a rebate program of property taxes of approximately 95% of the new value over and above the old value for a period of 10 years. Okay, this was a very successful program. This PowerPoint was actually put together by the county. They did it in the end of 2017, which was the end of our 10-year program payout. So of all the people that participated, our final payment back was December of 2017 for the last payout. So that program then sunsetted and all the participants have ended. What we're talking about now is just this program to give you the history and to give the public the history of what it is, because it's been a while since we talked about it, and then later on talking about a new plan, a new NRP plan with new districts and new zones. So what you see was what the zone was for that program in the pink area on the map. So during that time frame, this graph to the right represents the assessed value of the parcels that were eligible to apply, in other words, all the business parcels that were within the NRP in that pink zone, but they did not participate in the program. And this is the natural growth that occurred over that 10-year period of time. So you can see that there was a growth of 179% in the property tax base if you didn't do anything. This is represents the assessed value of the parcels that were eligible to apply for the NRP that did participate in the program. And you can see there was a substantial increase in the tax value because they took advantage of the rebate program. They felt this was an advantage to them. They could invest in their property, make improvements, and not feel like they were being penalized because their property tax value had gone up, which is the natural thing that happens when you make improvements to property, and therefore got that money back, and they were much more willing to invest in the property. And this is the graph that represents the renovation improvement. The first one was new build, or the second one was new build. This is renovation improvement. So even the people that just renovated their properties, we improved our tax base by 153% over that same 10-year period of time. This is the big one. This represents all the new construction. We had vacant lots or green fields, whichever you prefer to call them, and people built totally new structures. So you're taking land that was basically agriculturally taxed land inside our city limits and adding new improved structures to them, new businesses bringing into our community. And that increased us to 1,095% of improvement in property tax for those properties that participated. So the conclusion from the county's point of view was that this was a very favorable motivator for the property owner to replace or build new structures, and that it seemed to be somewhat of a motivator for renovation. And they didn't have enough data that they could do for the parcels that did not participate, but they felt like this was a very worthwhile program and that the county themselves were willing to participate again in the future if we were to do this again. Now, there were only 5 cities at that point in time in the past that had this NRP program. Currently, there is only 2 cities that are still paying out their program. We were the first to complete our 10 years. We were the first to do the program in the county, and we were the first to complete the program in the county. So what we're looking at now in the future is 4 new districts, which we'll go into in a little more detail later. But the program outlines, whoops, sorry, that's the end of that program. No, it should be some slides for maps on that.
This is what I have.
That's the end of it? Okay. Sorry. We have in your packet earlier that you received, there were 4 districts that we're outlining. And so the main change that we're doing this time is the original program was business oriented only. So if you were a homeowner or a residential owner, that was not available to you. Some cities do both business, some do residential, some do both. So at this point of time, what we've got is we have 3 new map districts, and that presentation will be in when we do the actual request to you later and the new business portion of the program. There are 4 business map areas. One of them pretty much takes into account the downtown and that original pink zone area that you saw, plus some commercial property out around Moonlight that wasn't there back in 1997. The second district basically is a district that is to the west of us, that is right along Gardner Road, and has where Brett Works is and some of those other businesses in that area, the triangle, so to speak, on the 135th Street, and takes in 20 acres of property on the north side of that road, which is owned by Mr. DeVillibus and the Bristol Group. Thank you. This is Refund Zone 1. And as you can see, it includes the Main Street area and those commercial areas that take in the Price Chopper Moonlight Plaza and the Moonlight Commons, and then some industrial property that's currently behind the Austin's area, the Moonlight Plaza area. 2. Sorry, this is the second area. I'm sorry, I did that wrong for you. The second area is actually the South Gardner Road intersection, which takes into where the old Pumpkin Place property would be, down in the very southwest corner of that property, and then the area that is where we know the hospital is going in now, and then north of that there's 20 acres of property up to about 183rd Street, just short of 183rd Street. The went around Orchlands because they're already there, and they're a fairly new facility, and then took in the commercial area that's around that, and then the little property in between. And the third district would be the area which I referred to earlier as number 2, and my mistake, I got them turned in my mind. So this is the triangle that basically fronts Main Street or 56 Highway, goes out to Waverly Road, and then includes the property up to 174th Street and down Laurel back to 175th again. And then the fourth area, which is a totally new area, and this one's in blue because it's residential. So we have some very uniquely orientated property, which is out along Kill Creek Road, right below the Celebration Park and the sewer plant, which has some substantial development issues. These problems have historically come about because of the kinds of things that are at the property, and over time there have been some additional issues that have occurred to this property that weren't there when they originally started the subdivisions, and it makes this property very, very hard to develop and very costly to develop. However, it is very good property. It is zoned residential. It's inside the city limits, and in order to give this property the impetus it needs to develop properly, we're putting it inside its own zone, which is a zone 4. All this property is owned by one owner. It's about 78 acres or so, roughly, I believe, in total. You can see there are some substantial problems with it in the fact that we have quite a bit of water or floodplain area along and through the property. Those large yellow lines are gas lines and oil lines, transmission lines. They're major transmission lines. You cannot build not only not over them, but for some distance around them, because there are very substantial easements that go across those, usually 78 to 100 feet wide, each one of those. And then we have some other issues. Basically, it has to do with the location of the sewer plant to the north end, which pretty much makes that little island of property that you see not very buildable, or actually it's very buildable, but it's not very desirable because of its location, even though the school's right across the street and the Celebration Park's right across the street. So all in all, we felt this property deserved to be kind of like a trial run type situation to try and use this to help develop a specific piece of property. Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't other properties in the community that fit this, and if you look at the guidelines, we've outlined several other types of issues that are very similar to this, that if people were to bring to us any issues or any other pieces of property that met the 5 criteria or 3 of the 5 criteria that we've outlined in this particular aspect, we'd be very willing to look at that at a future map zone. But these are the current maps that we currently have. So that pretty much takes care of the presentation, and we'd like to open it for a public hearing at this point in time.
All right, thank you very much, Larry. Since there is going to be a public hearing, we're not going to have any public comment on this portion here. I would like to hear a motion on opening the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Moore, that we hold a public hearing on the adoption of neighborhood revitalization plan for the city of Gardner for the purpose of receiving public comments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The public hearing is now open. If you wish to come forward to speak on this particular item, there's a clock on the right side over here, or left side, your left side, my right, that will limit your comments to 5 minutes. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the hearing is now open.
I just want to hear Claudia say something.
With no one coming forward, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second.
Moore.
Moore. Okay, Moore. Man, then we close the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Larry, do you have any other further comments?
No, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Speaking of comments, we are now open for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. And the same rules kind of apply. We have 5 minutes on the clock. If you wish to come up and speak, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the floor is now open. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Good evening. Jerry Gipner,
Jerry.
4810 West 159th, Olathe. And I'm going to speak on the airport agenda. Is this the proper time to do that? Okay.
You can speak on any item except a public hearing item, sir.
Do what?
You can speak on any item except a
Anything I
public
want.
hearing.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Well, first off, I wanted to point out that the hangars at Gardner are not all equal. You know, they range from tar paper shack to penthouse, and they run $65 to $215. So, okay. So that's just the first thing I wanted to point. And so the hangar list, which you have, you've taken $100 from, what, 50 people right now. And that's going to be up to your legal department, but it seems to me that's a contract. Just pointing that out. Then we have the upgrade list, which is people that have hangars. You start out with whatever you can get, which is generally pretty minimal. Then you get on an upgrade list and hope to get a better one and move up the ladder. The subleasers, on the other hand, they just walk in and get the best hangars right off the bat because the people that want to keep their hangars are the ones that have the good hangars. So you're kind of giving away your best hangars if you adopt that situation. So I just wanted to point those things out. This is a no-win situation. It's not fair to anybody any way you do it. So good luck in making a decent decision, is all I can say there. Also wanted to point out to you that the Johnson County Airport Board is having a meeting tomorrow morning at 7 and again on Wednesday morning, and they're effectively doubling their hangar rent. And they're already the highest in the area. So just wanted to bring that to your attention for whatever it's worth. So, good luck, thank you all, and we'll see what happens.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jerry.
Can I step in for just a second again?
Sure, you've still got
Something
your...
else we've been kicking down the road for years. We have 10 or 15 hangars out there that have aircraft that aren't airworthy and haven't been, some of them, for 30 years. And I know Michael's been working on this. And like I say, it's another tough decision. So just wanted to point it out to you. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jerry. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in, please.
Sorry about that. I didn't stand up quick enough.
That's all right.
Good evening. My name is Gary Mitchell, 8007 Washington Avenue, KCK. I'm an airport guy, vintage guy. I just wanted to respond a little bit. I was at the Airport Advisory Board meeting in December, and everybody had a chance to kind of put their comments in of what was going on. There was a vote. The members that were, of the attendees that were there and the board, and they came up with a plan that it might kind of make everybody mad just a little bit, and that's about the best you're going to do. And that was a good point that was made there. So I was a little surprised to hear some of the comments earlier. The hangars not being equal, yeah, there are some different hangars there. But again, that was discussed at that meeting, and there was every opportunity to bring those things out. I don't believe that you're going to be giving away the best hangars. That's a little bit of a, I think that might have been a little exaggeration. And to say that it's not fair to anyone, again, I think it's about as fair as it's probably going to be to everyone. So, as far as Johnson County doubling their rates, let's not talk about hangar rate increases, please, because we've all just had to buy insurance. So, and the unairworthy aircraft, there are some out there, and they are working on that. So, but I think that the Airport Advisory Board has made a good recommendation, which I hope you will support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I don't want to cut anybody off. Going once, going twice? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
Motion, Melton, second, Winters. That we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. Committee recommendations. Committee recommendation, item number 1, consider adopting a resolution adopting a neighborhood revitalization program. Larry Powell, looks like we've got a common theme here.
Thank you, Mayor. So basically what we have at this point in time is the Economic Development Committee has been reviewing for quite some time this program again. They started actually about the middle of early in 2018, and had a recommendation originally that was just business orientated. As we went through the year, it became apparent to us that was not going to be adequate for all our needs, and as a result, they went back to the drawing board and did some studying on what some of the other cities were doing in the area of residential development, and decided to boil our program down to the most needy areas that we could, which we've already discussed on that one map. And so when they did that, we tried to make it so that the program itself could be adaptable futuristically if we needed to include other areas. So, oops, am I going the wrong way? There's not a program after this one? No, okay. So is this the program outlines? Forgive me. I thought we were going to have the packet program outlines up for you. It should be up now. No, it's not working. Oh, there we go. So technology is great when it works. So we had EDAC meetings, the Economic Development Advisory Committee held meetings to confirm the usability of the program and whether it would assist the city of development of Gardner. And we went through this program that you had seen earlier tonight from the county, and when we felt that the ramifications of that were that really did help the city grow in that particular 10-year program, that particular time frame. Unfortunately, that 10-year time frame happened to coincide with the downturn of the housing industry at the same time. So we were just getting really started well with the growth of the community when we had this downturn economically, which kind of stunted us a little bit in those particular categories. So we went through and we decided that this was something worthwhile to do. And what we did is we went through and we basically have talked to some of the property tax partners that participated in the first program. Unfortunately, we can't do a presentation to them until you agree to create a program. So basically what we're doing is we're bringing a program to you, so this is the first step in getting it started. We then will take it in the next steps to the other entities. So during the review process, we took into consideration location, transportation aspects of the property to be included in the NRP zones, and this is for the business zones. And we talked about addressing those particular residential issues that we already previously discussed. And then we talked about the length of time the rebate can be in place. And there are two distinct differences between business rebates and the housing rebates, and that is the time. So on the general business zone requirements, this is what we're following. The improvements must increase the property tax value by at least 15%. Our old program is 20%. Because of the cost to build today, it seemed appropriate to us that the percentage should be slightly lower. And we also felt like we wanted to keep them the same. So you're going to see the same percentage of requirement on both residential and industrial or business. The improvements themselves, of course, if you're building something totally new, is easily met. But when you're doing an add-on or something like that, it's not so easily met. So it has to be dated after January 1st of 2019, of course, because we're starting the program this year. They have to be current on all they have to be current on all taxes prior to applying. We're talking about all taxes. They must be inside the approved zone. They must be zoned for business use. And this rebate length of time is for 10 years after it's placed on the tax rolls. And the property tax rebate is transferable with the property if they decide to sell the property, or if the business is, for example, purchased by someone else, or the owner decides to retire, or what have you. And so any remaining years that are left will stay with the property and transfer to the new property owner. Now, the last line here, the specials, any specials by state law must still be paid, so they're not forgiven. Neither are, by state law, the 8 mills of USDA 231 capital mill out levy. That is required to be paid, and that's required not only on this program, but on our industrial revenue bond program as well. So for the general residential requirements, they're basically the same, except that the time zone is only 5 years, and there's a reason for that. Number one, the housing growth rate on the property tax base is substantially at a lower rate, and it occurs more slowly than businesses do. Okay? So you might have taxes that increase on a business property fairly quickly over a short period of time. But in the residential area, it's not going to happen as fast. The other aspect is we really want to encourage growth in this specific housing area, but we didn't want to give them an undue advantage over the rest of the housing market in the city. So we felt 5 years was an appropriate amount of time to give this thing and to get it up, get it running, get them to build a majority of their houses. They're not going to get them all built because they're looking at 200 or 300 houses, but they'll get at least 50, maybe 100 of them built within that 5-year time period of time. Now, the thing is this goes for 10 years. So they might build a lot more houses than I'm expecting them to build, but that'll depend entirely on the market and how the developer decides to proceed. So this again is transferable, and again the specials and the 8 mills are required to be paid. So you're not going to get a 95% tax rebate on either one anymore, although that's what our standard was in the past. I don't actually know what the percentage will be, but it'll be somewhere between 90 and 95% based on what the mill levies are as they work out on the basis of the taxability. So the next steps for this then, if you were to adopt this resolution tonight, would be for us to contact the other participating governmental entities, set a time frame to go do a presentation for them. They are required by state law to sign an intergovernmental agreement. Am I saying that correctly, Ryan? Intergovernmental or interlocal agreement? Interlocal agreement. And then once we have all the participants signed up with that, then it goes to the Attorney General to approve the interlocal agreement aspect of it. Other than that, it's ready to proceed, and we would then put it in place and make it available to the general public. And we would try and keep it in front of them so people would be aware that it's available for their use. So that's basically that in a nutshell. We have the maps, which you've already seen, if you want to look at those again. But other than that, we have the resolution number 2006 for your consideration.
Thank you, Larry. Any public comments on committee recommendation item number 1? Seeing none, questions for Larry regarding the NRP? Yes.
So on the intergovernmental, is that each intergovernmental entity can decide whether to participate or not, and the program would still, if we were the only one participating, would the program still exist?
Yes, sir, but it would just, the only rebate that would be available would be the city mill levy.
Right, okay.
So each entity decides to participate, and if they do, then the list just gets checked off as to who they are. There is one difference, and I'm sorry, I meant to mention this in my discussion. When we did our first program, the fire department was part of the city. Okay, so of course, it's now a separate entity. It was felt by the EDAC that the fire department mill levy should be paid. It's a highly required protective service, needs the support of the general taxpayer public, and so therefore they're exempt also. We will not be asking the fire department to participate in this. So you would have the fire department, the specials, and the 8 mills at least being paid on all the taxes.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask. And the second thing was about the retroactivity of the program. I talked about people who were applying for, they would put their application in if they're starting their construction on or after January 1st of this year, correct? So once those approvals are done, it goes to the Attorney General, it gets signed off or gets its blessing or whatever, then the folks who have already possibly applied would get that rebate, correct?
They wouldn't be eligible to apply for the program until it's been approved by the Kansas Attorney General. So if we can get, let's say I can get in front of everybody in the next 60 days, and we can get it to the Kansas Attorney General's office, his review doesn't take very long.
Okay.
And so we hopefully will be done in, we're hoping March, 1st of April. That's our time frame I'm shooting for, if I can get in front of everybody.
Yep, just in time for building season.
Yeah.
Larry, I had some questions, and I agree with the mayor. I was going to ask about the fire department piece. Can you give us some examples of last year, the 10-year prior? Can you give us some examples of folks that took part in that and what we saw that came out of that? And then can you remind us who funds this?
I think that list is in our packet.
Well,
Yeah, I know the list, but I just want the public to hear it.
Well, a couple of examples. Probably
O'Reilly.
the highest value return on investment was the O'Reilly building. That was raw ground, and so they built a brand new structure, and so they had a pretty good return on investment for 10 years on that actually equaled what the building cost to build over the 10-year period of time. So that was a very good investment on their part. And I'm sorry,
And then the funding mechanism?
the funding mechanism? Thank you. I'm sorry, I meant to mention that also. The previous funding mechanism is process, the refunding process is as follows. So you participate in the program, you get approved to participate in the program, you build your structure, we accept it, we notify the county appraises it, sets a new value. If it meets the 15% or better guideline, then the county is the refunding person or group. You pay your taxes in full, just like you always do. This still requires you to pay 100% of your taxes. And then the county says, okay, here are all the groups that are participating. That equals this much of the new value. Here's a check. 30 days later, you get a check and return mail. But you only get that check checked off and back to you after you've paid in full. So if you pay every 6 months, you're still not going to get that check rebate until you make the second payment.
Okay. Well, I got a question.
Larry, was there any consideration with the 15% as to a dollar amount as well? Because if you have ag land and you put a house on it, obviously you're gonna get 15% pretty easily. But if you've got $1 million commercial building and you wanna retrofit it, then you're gonna have to spend, $150,000 there. So was there any consideration that once you hit a certain dollar amount, it doesn't matter if it's 12%, let's say?
No, we did have that in discussion, sir. The problem is what we tried to do is we tried to develop a matrix that was based on both money and a percent of value.
Okay.
But it got convoluted real fast. And the thing is we felt like, we're trying to encourage development across the board.
Sure.
And so it was, what's the simplest format that we can follow? And basically the state law that's set up is what we followed is the simplest format. So we felt like, again, doing the 15 instead of the 20% gave both the businesses and the residential developer an incentive to participate as quickly as possible. And then, like I said, we tried to balance that out on the 10-year side. For what you said, you got 10 years of rebate versus 5 years on the housing side, because it does require you to invest more
Okay.
on the business side.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Lee.
How were the area or the zone boundaries determined? What kinds of things were considered in that?
Yeah, good question. Basically, the zones themselves, number one, we took the existing zone, the old one, and we said, is it still adequate? And what areas do we need to include or leave off that maybe aren't developable anymore, or maybe they've become residential and you don't want to do something with them. And we drew that new imaginary line, and this was done with input from the EDAC. The committee is the ones that reviewed all the lines. So we actually went through several variations of each one of those maps before we had a final document. That's why it took most of the summer to do this. And then we went and talked to some of the property owners to see what their future plans were, because there were a couple of pieces of property that we felt, well, do we include them or not? Because these have been sitting here for 20 years and nothing's happening with them. Are you ever going to do anything with it or not? And they said, economy's going back up. We're going to put it back on the market. We might decide to build something. If you have this in place, I think the chances for it to develop will be much better. So yes, we would like to be included. So we looked at all of those commercial areas, and we talked to like I said, the pumpkin patch owners and the Posinelli people and all the people that were down in the south end of town. We did include the hospital property because at the time the hospital hadn't purchased that property yet, and so it was commercially zoned, and we felt it just made the boundaries, it made sense to follow that highway line as a boundary line. And then, of course, we included the Fraley property, who Mr. Fraley made sure it was his commercial property, if you may recall that conversation. He wanted to make sure his property was included in that, so he was quite happy to be included. So we took care of the southern zone that way. And then the triangle zone that we call out here, that has been a mixture of homes and businesses for a long time. And the planning, this goes back now to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission in the future use map shows that area actually to be all business. Those line of homes along 175th Street at some point in time we think will ultimately get bought out and businesses will fill that area. And so it made sense to us to include that whole area. And then of course we needed to include the DeVillibus property because that's been zoned commercial for a long time for the same reasons that we've talked about previously. And then that takes care of the 3 business districts, and then the commercial district, or excuse me, the residential district. I gave you the reasons earlier why that was districts included. One thing that we're doing on other residential districts is the other attributes or the other points that we take into, if you're located maybe not next to a sewer plant, but to some other, if your property is a brownfield, for example, a brownfield is environmentally damaged property in some form. Maybe it has an oil spill on it, or a old farm nitrogen spill, or something like that that makes the property hard to develop. It needs to be cleaned up. That's one of the review criteria. Or let's say it's associated, it's topographically between the highway and the railroad tracks, which is another hard area to develop because of the noise factors. So we put in some of those factors there are 3 or 4 other pieces of property that could futuristically apply for that NRP on residential. So we tried to make it limited in scope, but broad enough that others could participate if they had similarly designed property. I can't say that word tonight.
So there is some.
Damaged property.
There is some ability for folks at a later date to apply for this if they're on the boundary of one of these.
There is a method for the state to expand a boundary or create a new one, but we would be going through this very same process.
Okay.
Because we have to meet all of those same guidelines for the expanded area. But we tried to take into account what we thought, everything that probably needed to be included at this point in time.
Okay.
All right, so I do have a question, going back to tax refund zone 1. The area east of Cedar and west of Moonlight, along and north of Main Street, that's the Main Street Marketplace property,
Yes,
which already has a TIF and a CID associated with it.
correct. That will not be participating in the NRP program.
Yeah.
It's in the program.
It's in the map. So
It's in there, but they have to apply to participate. Here's the rub. If you're getting a tax abatement of some kind or using the taxes for some other program,
Exactly.
then the NRP cannot be used. You can't have more than one program using the same tax dollars.
I want you to mention that for the audience.
Exactly.
If people look at this map and they say, well, wait a minute, we're giving
Yeah.
the CID, and now they're seeing it on the tax rebate, they're gonna think, well, what the heck are they? Exactly.
Right. No,
So-
they're going to be paying taxes.
Yep. All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Larry, if there's residential in some of the business areas,
Mixed use.
do they qualify for in other words, if there's a house along 175th Street there in that triangle,
As a house redevelopment? No, sir.
they have to be in that?
It would have to be in the housing, yeah. It has to be a designated zone for residential or business. There's not a mixed-use zone I could have overlapping zones, I can create 2 maps, but we created them separately.
Okay.
Now, if a business bought the property and expanded onto it, they could make use of it.
Okay.
All right. Got any other questions? Thank you, Larry. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Very comprehensive, Larry. Appreciate it. With no other comments from the body, I will entertain a motion on committee recommendation. Item number 1.
Second.
Motion Gorsuch, second Baldwin, that we approve resolution number 2006, and the resolution adopting our neighborhood revitalization program. And personally, I think it's long overdue. We should have had this back in place a long time ago. Don't let that sway your vote. All those in favor indicate by saying, oh, wait, we can't do that. We've got to have a city clerk calling the roll. Yes.
Councilman Gorsuch?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Resolution 2006 passes, and I'm going to get slapped around, I think, by the city clerk for messing up
I can do
protocol
it for
again.
you.
Or, yeah,
I'm here for you, Amy.
or the police chief tased me. All right, committee recommendation item number 2, consider recommendation to award a contract to DEHN Incorporated for the Hillsdale Lightning Protection Project, project number WA1807 on our CIP. Gons Garcia, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, this project came about as a result of in 2016, lightning storm damage equipment at the Hillsdale Water Treatment Facility. The losses were estimated at around $70,000. What happened is the lightning took half of the skate out, so the plant had to be operated manually for two consecutive days due to the SCADA damage. The purpose of the project is to provide lightning protection and surge suppression at the water treatment facility. Currently, the plant does not have any type of protection to protect the plant equipment or personnel. Proposals were requested. We received 3. The selection committee that consisted of utilities director, chief of police, and city engineer reviewed the proposals. After careful examination of the proposals, the recommendation was to go with DEN Incorporated. The cost of the project is $109,850. In the budget, on the approved budget for 2019-2020, we have $100,000, but then we had an additional $22,000 in 2018 that was not used, so it was carried to 2019. So right now we have $122,000. So the cost of 109 will result in a savings in the water fund.
Thank you, Gons. Any public comments really quickly on committee recommendation item number 2? I just love lightning. No one coming forward, any questions or comments from the body?
I just had one real quick. What does a $100,000 surge protector look like? Yeah. I kind of Googled and I came up with all kinds of stuff.
Well, there's two components. The first component, you have a lining rods that will go around the building.
Okay.
That includes the water treatment facility and also the intake building, which is 3 miles south of the plant.
Okay.
In addition, we'll be installing surge suppressors at the feeders coming to the plant. So it's about 2 or 3 surge suppressors and I don't know how many, maybe 7 or 8 lining rods.
Okay. And then, were those there before when it got hit, or was there nothing there?
There was nothing.
Okay.
It's my understanding they were part of the original upgrade of the facility, but due to budget limitations, they were cut from the construction.
Well, it sounded like a good investment to me. I went to Walmart. None of the ones there had the voltage we needed, so it should take care of it.
Buy a couple of them, put them together.
Okay, anyone else? I like the fact these guys are based out of Fort Pierce, Florida. They should have a lot of experience with lightning.
Yep, on the west coast, yep, a lot of lightning.
Yes, sir. All right, hearing no other comments, I'd like to entertain a motion on new business item.
So moved.
Second.
Committee recommendation item number 1. Yes, okay, thank you. Motion Baldwin, second Moore, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Dane Inc. The amount of, not Dane, but Dane Inc. And the amount of $109,850 for a lightning and surge protection system for Hillsdale Water Treatment Plant, CIP project number WA1807. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Committee recommendation item number 2 passes.
Thank you.
No problem, Gons. Thank you. Committee recommendation item number 3. Consider authorizing the new sublease policy for hangars at the Gardner Municipal Airport. Michael Kramer has the most enviable presentation of the evening.
With absolutely no visuals. So.
Oh, no.
So back in 2016, when the city took over operational control of the municipal airport, we redid the airport minimum standards, and part of that referred to subleasing, and that subleasing would end, I believe, at the end of 2016. That policy was reviewed in 2016 by the airport board and by city council, and one of the statements in there in the review was kind of, well, we can change it as we move forward if we need to. And so that policy, though, that was passed in 2016 was that the subleases would be allowed to continue through December of 18, with then all future subleasing being for a maximum of 2 years, and that the subleasers would come off of the hangar wait list, and that and then also that the subleasers would have an agreement directly with the city and pay the city. And so that's the policy that the airport board started talking about beginning this fall. And in November, we had a meeting that pretty much dealt specifically with that. At that meeting, we had about 17 guests that actually signed in. I think there were probably a few more than that. And discussed the policy, the existing policy, what had gone on in the past, what occurred at other airports, and and a gentleman brought in a detailed policy that I think is part of your packet. And then, so out of that meeting, then we developed the recommendation to bring back to the December meeting, which resulted in the policy that you have in your packet this evening. And so the airport committee, the board recommendation is that number one, moving forward, that no subleasing shall be allowed without the written permission of the airport manager. That's really to deal with very extreme circumstances. It's pretty standard to have that type of language in your leases. Johnson County airports have that in their leases, but their official policy is we do not allow subleasing. The second item in the policy is that hangar tenants currently subleasing, as shown in the city records as of December 1st, 2018, may continue to sublease through the end of 2019. And the subleases, though, will have a contract amendment separate signed with the city and signed by the subleasee, and the payment shall be made directly to the city. So this allows, if you are in there and you're subleasing your hangar, you can continue to sublease it, just no money's flowing through, your pocket. It's going directly to the city. And then the last item, though, is that the hangar subleases, as shown again on our records, may be transferred to the existing subleasee. And so that would allow, with the signing of the documents and the payment of a transfer fee equal to 1 month's rent. And so, and with that, if that lease is transferred, the person's name would come off of the hangar wait list. That'd take them off. And so with that, what that does, it allows the current subleasee to stay in the hangar, the hangar to be transferred to that, and essentially bypass, any wait list or, kicking planes out of a hangar. The airport board and staff agrees that, it's really in the best interest of the airport to maintain our tenants out there. And so we have about 23 known subleasees. And their positions on the wait list range quite dramatically. There's like on the wait list, there's number 4, number 9, 12, 16, 17, 22, 23, 24, and then there's some up at, near the end of the list at 58 and 59 and everywhere in between. But many of those subleasers have been there for quite a while. So, it really allows for basically those folks that are utilizing the airport now to continue to utilize it. I would say at the meeting in November, there was one gentleman there who was on the hangar wait list that is not subleasing. He has no desire to sublease, but he was fine with the policy, and I think that's reflected in those airport minutes as well. That those statements. Some of the and some of the other discussion as well is included in the minutes for you. And so, with that, I guess I'd open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 3? Seeing none. Any questions or comments from the body for Michael?
I'd just like to say thank you to the board and thank you to your staff, Michael, for doing what looks to be a very unpleasant task and a very difficult compromise. I think you guys arrived at a very, it seems to me to be very equitable, and you kind of kept to some of the things that we're trying to accomplish with a subleasing policy. And that was to do away with some of the older policy that prevented people from actually making progress on the wait list. It created you know, a feeling of unfairness among some of the folks that use the airport, and just a lot of discontent. I think this is a really good compromise, and I applaud the committee for bringing it forth. That's it.
Yeah, I would echo what Lee said. I'm not the resident expert, nor am I a pilot, although I've been a passenger a lot. My question would be, in light of what I just heard tonight, which I didn't know about from Johnson County and raising their rates, what would our interest be in understanding what our maybe 5 to 10 year plan looks like based on land availability? And we kind of know that there's some land out there that's shuffling around to build some more hangars with respects to, you know, providing a service. I think back to Lee's point, now that we have a good sound policy to work in, that'd be my question, just looking forward into the near and future.
To answer your question, Randy, there are new hangars planned, but they are quite a ways out in the future. There's quite a bit of work yet to be done in moving runways and that sort of thing. But they are out there, but they're probably in the 7 to 10 year
5 to 10,
timeframe.
7, 10, that's
Yeah.
fair. Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, why, it's been 2 years on that they could continue to sublease. Why are we going a whole nother year to the end of this year instead of 6 months and then cleaning up the list?
You know, that was discussed some, and so we talked about shortening that, you know, to maybe 3 months or 6 months, however long it'd take to actually get it done. But in fairness, the folks that were looking at the old policy had that, you know, they'd be able at this point to be able to continue to sublease for 2 years. So we are shortening that time frame significantly, but still allowing some flexibility if they wanted to continue.
Okay.
So
And then, is there a plan to look at requirements on the actual tenant, if you will, so that they're the ones using it, so that we can eliminate the subleasers completely? Because if the subleaser is now going to be paying the city, you're cutting out the middleman there. And if the tenant isn't utilizing that space and the subleasee is, there's really no reason for that person to still be taking up that spot.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And that would go to having the wait list be more accurate. So is there requirements or thoughts as to cleaning that portion up?
Yeah, so a couple things we've done in that. One, our hangar inspections, you know, gets our eyes on the hangar. 2, the insurance certificate requirements. That's one of the reasons we've gone through that exercise this year to make sure all of our records are updated and are in addition to being able to, you know, make sure things are safe, et cetera. But the insurance certificate provides us an owner and the certificate of insurance on the plane, and that's the plane that should be in the hangar. And so that helps us do some cross-referencing on that type of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion Moore, second Melton, that we approve the recommended sublease policy for hangars at the Gardner Municipal Airport. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Committee recommendation, item number 3 passes. There is no old business. New business, consider the Gardner Edgerton Chamber of Commerce agreement. Matt Wolf. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The proposed agreement with the Chamber of Commerce is for business and tourism services for 2019. It includes $35,000 for business services, the same as last year, plus another $115,000 for new tourism services. The $115,000 includes $15,000 to be utilized for recreation, event promotion, and cooperation with city staff. The total amount of the agreement is $150,000. It will be paid from transient guest tax funds and the Economic Development Fund. The Chamber's 2019 work plan was included in your agenda packet, and Jason Camus, President and CEO of Gardner Edgerton Chamber of Commerce, is here tonight to give you a brief presentation.
Evening, Jason.
Good evening. Thank you, Matt. I'll make this one of my shorter presentations. So, because you have it in front of you and you might have a few questions, and I want to leave it more for that. As Matt said, there's two components to it. There's we broke it up into business services, which is currently what we provide, and then tourism services. On the business services side, we look at this. This is a partnership with the city. We obviously work hand in hand with staff on a lot of different aspects. We work with Greg Martinet with the Southwest Johnson County EDC, and we look to figure out what types of services do we continue, what did we add. Basically, really the only changes on the business services side, we firmed up a little bit of language, really related more to the partnership aspect, who we work with in certain cases, the communications manager, parks and recreation director, and so forth. We clarified a few items. One of the things that's relatively new is we put in there a BRE program, which is business retention and expansion. And really the idea there, speaking with Larry and staff, is to more formalize that so that we're collecting similar data both from our end as well as the EDC. And we will, whereas the EDC tends to focus on larger employers, we will focus more on the small to medium-sized employers in the community. We added a mid-year regional event, more of a regional Southwest Johnson County event to showcase the region. Obviously, we serve both cities, Gardner and Edgerton. We have a contract with the city of Edgerton as well. And we know that when people are looking at us, they still look at us as a region, while they also look at us as individual communities. We put in there exploration of bringing back the Gardner Leadership Program. That was something that took place back in the mid-2000s, somewhere before I got here, probably around 2008, 2009. I think that program kind of went by the wayside. And what we're starting with this year is basically I will be giving a presentation. I'll be part of the Gardner U program, but this would be something that's different. If we look to bring this back in 2020, would be different than Gardner U. It would be more of a business leadership program. We would target employees of companies in Gardner that would take time out of their day. Typically it's paid for by employers and so forth, and you'll hear more about that in the future. And last but not least, we always include the opportunity, this being an election year, opportunity for the community to get to know council candidates when that comes up later this summer and into the fall. So that's the business services side. I suppose right now, I would guess I could ask if there's any questions related to the business services side before I talk tourism, because I think you might have some questions on the tourism side.
We'll entertain questions. This is usually not the format.
You can ask for the questions, Mayor. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So I'll go to the tourism side. So okay. On the tourism side, this is new, and so obviously when I came back in April, talked about the need for a CVB, and during that time I've had opportunities to speak with many of you. I've spoken with staff several times, and we've gone back and forth between, do we have a standalone organization that's a Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, or does the chamber just operate it under our umbrella? And originally my focus was not so much on what the organization looks like, it was actually the activities that we provide. However, after having conversations with many different people, I think the idea came forward most likely that we should probably have a separate organization that the chamber will contract to manage the first couple years, and then it gives us an opportunity if the chamber or the city at some point decides, you know what, city says we want to contract with someone else, we want to bring it back in-house, chamber says we don't really want to be in the tourism industry anymore, and they want out. So it gives a nice, clean, easy out with the idea that the tourism services are still being provided in our community. So basically this is structured in such a way that that would happen. So we would have a standalone organization. We'd start with the organizational structure, which would be determining what that would look like. Is it a 501c6 organization? Does it have financial and accounting procedures, an operating budget, and so on? The next step, as I indicated back in April, was to complete a visitor profile study. And really what that is we need to know who's coming here. Who's coming here currently? How are they spending money? Where are they coming from? Which then allows us to build a marketing plan accordingly. Both of those, it's easy, and I'll just use an example. I get a call every day, AAA magazine, they want you to buy an ad. Well, it would be easy for us or any organization or the city to say, oh, $2,000, we've got some of that money, or here and that. But without having that visitor profile study, we're just throwing money at magazines and throwing money at different places without understanding, are we really attracting people here? I use the example with Festival on the Trails, since I helped them out, even with the Vintage Aircraft Association when I met with them, to try and start understanding who's coming so that we can better market to the people who might come to those events. And to realize, maybe a particular event is locals and it has a potential for being outside if we market it outside, or maybe a particular event is not a local event and we have opportunities somewhere else in the market, whether it's the Kansas City region or elsewhere, to bring people in. And then basically once that strategy is completed, we would go about marketing. Now simultaneously, we'll continue some of the activities we currently do, which are relatively light, and they're working with some of our partners such as the Kansas City Regional Destination Alliance or Travel Kansas. When we have opportunities to promote through their mechanisms, they oftentimes will have marketing initiatives where we can, or cooperative advertising, we might try and jump in when we can. We'll do some of that. The $15,000 that Matt also mentioned related to recreation and recreation programming marketing for the city. And really the Transient Guest Tax Committee had that idea of it would be great for the chamber and the city to kind of work together to kind of determine that. And I've already had an initial conversation back before the first of the year with Jason and Danica to sit down here in January to look at how are we doing that, where are we advertising, because for some of the events that are drawing thousands of people here, the Beer and Wine Festival, the Smoke on the Trails, 4th of July, we might have some leverage to cooperatively market for other events and to make that money go a little bit further. And so those are some of the opportunities that we're going to explore. And basically, the chamber will work with the city on that. On the specifics on the tourism side, what I really will tell you is right now we're starting to kind of compile here are some of the opportunities. And a couple examples, 2020, next year, we're going to have the Kansas City Air Show that's going to be here at Gardner Airport, at New Century Airport, which is a big deal. The 2021, we're going to have the Model T tour of the Santa Fe Trail is actually going to start from here. And so that's something they're looking at bringing a huge group here in, I think it's September of 2021. So we're starting to compile some of that stuff so we can look forward and how do we go about marketing those. The last thing I really want to say is, on the financial side, this is going to be a piece, and one of the things that's written in the agreement, that we really don't have an idea of what that's going to look like this year. And we obviously have the $15,000 we're setting aside up front, and so the remainder would be $100,000 for the CVB, the tourism services. Most likely, $100,000 isn't going to come in. It'll all depend on when the Hampton opens, and we will work with city staff to determine a schedule, which is also part of the reason we're not going out spending money today, tomorrow, because we don't know that time frame yet. So obviously that's a component of that. But that's what I have for you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Any public comment on new business item number 1? Seeing no one coming forward, questions for Jason? I think I'll start with you because I know you had a few questions, Rich.
My big thing is I read through this, and really for me, there's nothing in here for the city to say that we can't make sure that things are being done correctly with the money, right? There's nothing in here that says, hey, look, if we, because I don't see a problem with you, Jason, but I'm looking down the road with other, councils and other people. If I put something in there, then there's nothing that says, hey, look, we've got to be able to be accountable for this money. How are we going to, what's the metrics involved in making sure that there's something to say, look, we don't like what's going on, we need to fix it before all the money's gone and we're into the next year.
Okay.
So I need something in there to say, you know, these are things that we're gonna be accountable for, and that we can have a monthly meeting with the city administrator, you know, so that we know the money's being used correctly.
Gotcha.
So that's my thing on, because there's just kind of, it all sounds great.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that covers that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's definitely something, you know, one of the things I've somewhat purposely left it broad to figure out when we set up the organizational structure, for instance, a lot of CVBs will have representatives from obviously the industry. So you'll have your hoteliers, you'll have your attractions, restaurants, maybe other business owners, typically a council member, you know, you'll have that, and that group will meet, and ultimately that will become the board of directors for the CVB.
Right, just like we have the board
Yeah,
for the
just,
chamber.
exactly. And just like, but there would be a little bit more of in my mind, at least, in a lot of cases, because it is direct city funds, typically the council, whoever from the council that would be on it, would actually be a voting member and have a little more, you know, whereas right now we have a liaison, Todd's our liaison to the chamber, and it's a little different. I mean, he doesn't have a vote per se with the chamber, but obviously he has a lot of influence with what we do and that relationship. So, but I definitely think that's something we can add, Rich, that gives it a little more teeth if that makes you feel more
Right,
comfortable in
that's
that.
exactly what it is, because like I said, it's like I always look down the line. Where are we gonna be with the next group of people? And I don't wanna, we've been all hamstrung up here with things that have been signed by other people. And
Yeah.
I don't wanna put that on the next group.
Yeah,
So,
understandable.
Well, to go a step further,
yeah,
so I agree with what you're saying, but we also have the EDC with Southwest Johnson County, and we said, oh, we'll let agreements be put in place and they can kind of run it because it's a little bit at arm's length. But I don't want to have something splintered where they're essentially doing some of the same kind of work, different work, but similar. So I don't want to have an agreement over here and an agreement over there that are going in separate directions.
Right.
So is this something where we need a separate committee, or the EDC looks at this as well, or a task force that's joint, or something to keep them cohesive?
Well, we actually do have a joint economic development task force that convenes right now that consists of members of the chamber, members of the EDC, as well as city representatives. So, yes,
You're referring to the Economic Development Council.
yes.
Right. That's what I was referring to originally.
Correct.
But what I'm saying is if you want teeth here,
Yeah.
I think we need the same teeth there.
In the EDC
Yeah.
agreement?
And so what I will go back to, you make a good point there, Mark, is, you know, the Economic Development Council is kind of where this all started from. And much like the EDC, or much like the chamber has been in the past, where obviously the mayor, the council president are on it, staff as well. And kind of where I went to with trying to give it, not necessarily teeth, but that outs was, you know, originally we talked about, right now we have a contract, it's a yearly contract, and it just funds, it goes into the chamber and we do it. Well, one of the things that I had, after having conversations was, you know, maybe this needs to be kind of we set up a standalone organization, has its own things. We had already talked about having our own books, but, you know, this gives it, so that way we can have board members and they can make a decision. And, you know, use an example, in Franklin County recently, their CVB, the county took the CVB back. And wanted it underneath it because of whatever decisions they made down there. And that will happen occasionally. And it wasn't that they'd done anything wrong, they just wanted a different structure. And those types of things. And so we wanted to make that possible for council on a yearly basis, if council decided, or frankly for the Economic Development Council to say, you know what, these are some of the things. And there was some things laid out in terms of who would serve on that. Parks and Rec director, communications manager, somebody obviously from council, from our end, you know, people from the industry and so forth, so.
Jason, I have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, Laura?
Yeah.
I think, Jason, you were there, we all talked as staff. As a reminder, the Economic Development Council is supposed to help set up this organization.
Yes.
Correct.
So this will come back before that council again
Correct.
as to how it looks and the reporting teeth structure.
Okay.
I'm still not sure if you're asking for spending powers or just reporting powers, because I would say, I don't know that you particularly, since there's already an Economic Development Council by charter ordinance,
Right.
I would caution you about spending limitations.
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about how if there's a problem, we set things in motion where, you know, we can fix it. You know, that's my thing. That's my main
So would
concern.
you do that through your Economic Development Council?
Well,
Yeah, we have members of city council and council leadership as well as from the other portions of the organization. Here's the thing I mean, you're looking for accountability. I think that's
Yes,
what it
that's-
comes down
that's
to.
really
You're looking for
what-
accountability.
I just
Completely
want to make sure
understandable.
it's there.
And I think accountability needs to be enforced consistently across all of our agreements with our intergovernmental partners that have a stake in in development. I would say the same thing, and I think that Greg Martinet would agree that needs to happen. So the question, and I'm not going to try to speak for him because he's not here, but that's, again, we aren't going to be making any decisions on CVB until there's a CVB agreement. And that's still being worked through.
Correct.
Okay? The funding we're talking about here is really more towards the advance process to get us to the point where we have a CVB. All right, we're not going to be doing, other than the $15,000 that has already been spoken for.
Yeah, that's pretty much been spoken for, and we
Yeah,
know the
for the
initial
Parks and Rec.
setup aspect will be the first part in some of the little ancillary things that we do currently.
Correct.
But I'm collecting up the stuff, like marketing opportunities. I've got a folder of them. Most of them we won't take advantage of because we're not ready for it yet. I mean, it
I just
should be
see
a
this-
process to get this started and start it the right way.
I see the potential, I mean, a huge potential of money here for this tax with the
Yeah.
hotel and everything else. So I just want to make sure.
Correct. And there may be more hotels.
Well, that's
And-
exactly.
That's the
where
goal,
I'm at.
to fill them up and bring
Right.
some more.
Yeah.
So
and-
I just want to make sure we're using that money effectively. That's my
Definitely.
No, I totally agree, and when we sign a contract with a company, there are performance clauses that are in that contract, okay? Well, there
I
should
know.
be performance
Well,
clauses in
yeah.
those contracts. Now, we've
That's
signed
something we've
contracts
had-
before that we haven't had performance clauses in,
Right.
and it's
Golf
caused us,
course.
it's caused
What's
us
the other one?
problems, okay? But, I think we've kind of made the determination here that any future contracts that we sign as a city, as long as this group is here at least, are going to have clawbacks and performance clauses in them.
Making sure.
Yep, nope, I totally understand and agree.
I can agree with Rich wholeheartedly. The question that I'd have, Jason, and I'm familiar with CVBs, I've worked with them in my previous life. Outside of the transient guest tax, which those dollars are ideal for these types of projects, do you see, and I think this kind of plays to and off of what Rich was saying, which I applaud, do you see the source of funding from the city and the transient guest tax shrinking and having the CVB more self-supported? Or what does that look like down the road?
Well, I can't speak to exactly how it will be. Typically, CVBs are not self-supported. Almost, I would guess that 98% of them have a public funding component. At what level, that will vary. So your largest CVBs, such as Visit KC in our area, they're going to have a significant amount of public funding, but they also actually have a partnership program, kind of like membership. But you don't typically see that at smaller CVBs. Now, you will see some smaller CVBs might have an event. If that's the direction we choose to go in, CVB says, hey, we see a market for some major event that could bring in money. There might be revenue sources tied to sporting tournaments or other things that you would bring in. Now, that said, one of the things that was talked about in the Economic Development Council this last year was moving towards a flat percentage in 2021. But that one of the concerns, and I can understand, is if what happens if 5 hotels pop up by then? 50% of funds at that point is a lot of money. Which on one side you might say, hey, we have other uses for it. Another side you might say, look, now we've got 5 hotels, we got to fill them up because the economic impact is huge. I see from the get-go here, we're going to be able to look at the economic impact that travel and tourism has in our community right from the get-go, and that's going to be to me that's huge because that tells us that we're doing the right work, or maybe not, and where we need to make some of those shifts. So I can't really speak to there's places to pull funds otherwise because the CVB is not going to have enough staff to go out and pull off some of the great festivals, say that the Parks and Rec department has with a staff of 15 or 10 or 5, it wouldn't make sense for us to do that. But Parks and Rec decides, hey, we're going to add a new event for X. We might be the ones out doing the marketing for it. Again, that continues that partnership. Or community, the citizens might come up with something. Kind of like Festival on the Trails is run by an independent board now in the community. Might be the same type of thing.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Any other questions? Representative on the Parks and Rec subcommittee.
Yeah, that's good.
It's good for
Good
you?
thing.
Okay. Yeah, might help you
Absolutely.
with like Festival on the Trails and things like that.
It could, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. Okay, with no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on new business item
So
number
moved.
1.
Second?
Motion Gorsuch, second Melton. Yeah,
That's me.
That's you. Okay, that we authorize the mayor to execute
Whoever
agreement
thought
with
that
the
would happen.
Gardner Edgerton Chamber. Yeah, I don't know how you could possibly be forgotten, right? With the Gardner Edgerton Chamber of Commerce for business and tourism services for 1 year ending December 31st, 2019. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention?
Thank you very much.
Business item 1 passes, no problem. Mr. Camus, keep on keeping on. New business item number 2, consider accepting the sanitary sewer and water line easement dedications by separate instruments for Gardner Business Center. Michael.
Evening, Mayor and Council again. So this is the easements that are needed for the public infrastructure at Gardner Business Center, and so the whole thing is not final platted yet, so these easements fall outside the existing. There's no condemnation necessary, and they're just needed so that we can maintain those public infrastructure. And so the easements included are 2 sanitary sewer easements and 2 water line easements. And there's exhibits that go with each one of those in your packet.
Great. Any public comment on new business item number 2? Seeing none, any
Airport
questions?
gets done.
Yeah, I know, they're gone. 3/4 of the place is clear now. Any
Put them on last.
Any questions or comments? No questions, no comments. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on
So
new
moved.
business item number 2.
Second?
Oh, motion Moore, second.
You got it.
Oh, Winters, okay.
Winners?
Oh, it was Baldwin, okay. Moore,
It's
Baldwin.
fine.
Motion Moore, second
Separate
Baldwin,
you two.
that we accept the dedication of sanitary sewer and water line easements by separate instruments for the Gardner Business Center. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have 1 not present. New business item number 2 passes, thank you. New business item number 3, consider the acceptance of drainage, sanitary sewer, water line, and temporary turnaround easement dedications by separate instruments for Olathe Health.
So
This is
same thing, we have several public improvements that are being done currently outside of their not yet recorded plat. And so there's a drainage easement, a sanitary sewer easement, a water line easement, and a temporary turnaround easement for 189th Terrace.
Okay. Any public comment on new business item number 3? I wouldn't expect any, but. All right. Questions for Mr. Kramer on new business item number 3?
I do have one. It's not
Yeah.
quite related to this. When the gas line got put in, they kind of tore up the asphalt for the greenway. And then they kind of poured concrete back in, and it's kind of just, do they have to fix that, or we?
They have to take care of that, and we can check into it, and that's part of their right-of-way permitting
Yeah,
process.
it's just that they kind of poured it
Oh,
in.
when they moved it?
Yeah, when they
gas
put in
line?
the gas line, so
Sure.
I've been meaning to ask about it. I keep-
In that general area?
Yeah, it's down there right before the
The
turn in where they put
Okay.
the no parking stuff. Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
it.
So
I forget 5:30 in the morning. By the time I get here, I usually forget, so. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Melton, that we accept the dedication of the drainage, sanitary sewer, water line, and temporary turnaround easements by separate instruments for labor health. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 3 passes. New business item number 4. Consider adopting a resolution providing notice to be given for a public hearing concerning the advisability of the creation of a community improvement district within the city and declaring the intent of the city to levy a community improvement district sales tax for the Main Street Marketplace SID, the project that keeps on giving. Matt Wolf, good evening again.
Good evening. Supermarket Developers has applied for the use of a community improvement district. If the SID is created by the city, certain further conditions are met, the city intends to impose a 1% SID sales tax within the SID to reimburse eligible costs of the Main Street Marketplace project and to consider the issuance of special obligation SID bonds. This probably sounds familiar. It was originally scheduled for December 17th. At that meeting, council rescheduled it for January 22nd because we received a revised petition from the developer. We're asking to reschedule it again. That's because we're required to give certain notice as defined by State of Kansas Community Improvement District Act. And the usual publication deadline for the city official newspaper was moved up because of the New Year's holiday, and the request to publish notice of hearing was not made to the newspaper prior to the holiday deadline. As a result, we need to reschedule the public hearing so that we can provide the required notice.
Okay. So this is housekeeping.
Yes.
All right.
Use that term?
Well, I got a word term. Well, it's not a word.
I plan to use it a
Okay, all
lot,
right,
so.
you pass it along, it's okay. All right.
This is the infamous housekeeping. Okay. Any public comment on new business item number 4? Seeing none. Questions for Matthew or for Tyler, who's here this evening, Tyler Ellsworth from Kutak Rock. Thank you for coming. Any questions?
Thanks for coming all the way for this.
Hey, you got to hear about the airport.
Right.
Okay. Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 4.
So move.
Second.
Motion Melton,
Yeah.
second Moore, that we adopt resolution number 2007, correct? Providing for notice to be given for a public hearing concerning the advisability of creation of a community improvement district within the city and declaring the intent of the city to levy a community improvement district sales tax pursuant to KSA 12-6A26 at SEC for the Main Street Marketplace SID. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winter?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Resolution 2007 passes. Yes. Certainly.
Before Tyler leaves,
Yes.
you might like to mention that you're being represented by Gardner.
Oh, yes. Well, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that in council updates, but if he leaves, then we won't hear. Yeah. So, yeah, we got the notification a couple of weeks ago that our bond counsel Ellsworth has been made a partner in his Kutak Rock. So
Wow.
I think that's worth.
Which is on you, buddy.
Congratulations. Thank you for that. For stopping me. Okay, great. Let's see here. Okay, new business item number 5. Consider adopting a resolution approving the execution of a funding agreement. You would have been here anyway because the funding agreement discussion also. Okay. Of a funding agreement with the Bristol Group LLC. Yes.
The Bristol Group have requested that the city review and analyze their request for certain financial incentives for 3 different economic development projects. The proposed West project, located at northeast corner of Waverly Road and West Santa Fe Street, will be a mixed-use development that includes residential, retail, and office. The proposed Reserve project, located north of West Santa Fe Street between Oakwood Manor and Waverly Point subdivisions, will be a residential development. The proposed East project, located east and west of Northstone Creek Drive north of Lincoln Lane, will be a mixed-use development consisting of both residential and industrial. The first step in this process is the approval of a funding agreement. The funding agreement allows the city to retain certain administrative and professional staff, as well as outside counsel and consultants, and to incur other expenses to evaluate the proposed projects to ensure that they are in the best interest of the city and to conduct due diligence to ensure protection of taxpayers. The applicant is responsible for all reasonable costs associated with the evaluation of the proposed project and will reimburse the city for these costs. The applicant will make an initial deposit of $20,000 as a retainer for the city to begin evaluation. Once again, bond counsel Tyler Ellsworth is here tonight, is available to answer any questions that you may have. Staff recommends approving the execution of a funding agreement with the Bristol Group.
Yes, and I believe that Greg DeVilbiss from Bristol Group is here this evening as well to answer any questions. Any public comment? And if the applicant wishes to make comment, he can do so as well. All right, seeing no one coming forward, any questions for Tyler or Matt or Greg?
I don't have a question, Mayor. I'm excited about the opportunity that this lends to the city in that specific area. We appreciate your investment.
Yeah, it's a tough area. So it's
Well,
good to see
there's
some-
3 tough areas, actually, and I think that this is a great opportunity for us to revitalize the entire Main Street corridor, not just the ends of it, but also the middle part as well. Any other questions? Okay, great. All right, I will entertain a motion on resolution number 2008.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorsek, second Baldwin,
That's all I gave them.
that we adopt resolution 2008 approving the execution of a funding agreement related to 3 proposed economic development projects located within the city. And my understanding is that deposit has already been made in lieu of an agreement. And so that shows a bit of commitment. And yes, very, very excited applicant, absolutely. City Clerk, will you please call the roll on this resolution?
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorsek?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
If I had a vote, I'd say yes too, but I don't have a vote. Resolution 2008 passes. Hey, don't be grabbing that. Man, I have to put you in the corner. All right, council updates. We've got 6 minutes. We want to get this in by 8:30. So, staff, does staff have anything for council? I'm going to start with the chief.
Nope.
Nothing. City clerk.
Yes, sir. There were some challenges with availability for governing body members when scheduling interviews for both the Airport Advisory Board and the Utility Advisory Commission. As a result, these interviews will not be completed in time to meet the deadlines outlined in governing body rules of procedure. As the Airport Advisory Board will still have a quorum without the appointment of an additional member, this does not pose an immediate problem for that board. However, the Utility Advisory Commission will only have 2 members at the end of January, even with the reappointment of Clint Barney as approved during tonight's consent agenda. There were also an insufficient number of applicants for the commission as compared to seats. I've consulted with Attorney Denk asking if the terms of seated members could be extended slightly in order for the process to be extended, and he said governing body rules of procedure allows for this in exceptional circumstances, such as this one. My recommendation is that the governing body provide consensus to extend the expiring terms, should those members with expiring terms desire to have their terms extended, in order to allow for a quorum to remain on the Utility Advisory Commission. In order to attempt to attain more applications and to fit within the timelines established by governing body rules of procedure, the selection process can be restarted during the time frame. The 2 applicants already received will still be considered. As you have received enough applications to fill the open position on the Airport Advisory Board, you can determine if you would prefer to restart the process or if you would like to have an agenda item introduced at the January 22nd, 2019 City Council meeting to slightly extend the process in order to allow for interviews and consideration.
Okay. And a lot of this was caused because of just bad timing with regard to the holidays. And so I understand that it put us in a bit of a pickle. Let's say the council on this. I think that, are we looking for a 30 or 60-day extension?
I would
For
recommend
USC?
60 days or
Yeah.
8 weeks or so that we can restart the process because it's a 6-week process.
so
So
end
that
of
should give you
February.
enough time to complete it.
Okay.
I say make it
I'm
so.
good with that.
And you're saying for both airport and UAC, or
No, it's
just
just
UAC?
Just you.
Just UAC, the airport member that stepped down has actually stepped down, so there would be no point in extending a term for that. It's just a matter of if you want an item on the next agenda to extend the airport process, because you have 2 applicants, or if you would like to restart the process, I would recommend just putting an item on the next agenda to extend the process rather than re-advertising.
That way we have
Yeah.
time to schedule the interviews.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at a 60-day extension for UAC only to allow for more resumes and to basically restart the process, but continue to have those folks that have put in their resumes or their applications to be considered. Okay, we have consensus?
Yes.
Okay, great. You have consensus. Anything else?
No.
Okay, great. Matt Wolf, you look very chill over there.
I have no updates for this one.
Okay, I think it's because that whole married thing, still afterglow or something. Ryan Dank.
Nothing for me.
You were moving the microphone. I thought you were going to say something, or give us a song or something.
I meant to push the button.
Oh, okay. Gons Garcia. No, sir. Mr. Bruce.
No, sir.
Nothing. Larry Powell, you've talked enough tonight.
That's like sounds like
I'm kidding. No. No, Larry's doing a great job. But do you have anything seriously? Okay. Hey, it's brevity. Michael.
Yeah, so I did want to mention a couple things. Actually, one thing with the airport, and that is our federal shutdown is affecting some applications for airspace, which is affecting some of our projects, including the sanitary sewer and the Santa Fe Road project from Poplar to Waverly, because those both have to go through airspace. So right now, their portal is basically not accepting applications, and there's not people there to review said applications. So just wanted to give you a little heads up.
It's non-essential. All right. Okay, thank you. That's not the greatest news. Interim City Administrator Gorley. Yeah, Ika, or Ika.
Because we're trying to shoot for brevity, I just wanted to remind everyone, our next meeting is Tuesday, the 22nd. For Martin Luther King is on Monday. And then also, in case you didn't notice, our fabulous IT staff did an out-of-the-box innovative moment because the other camera is still missing and gone, so they put in a new one. This actually provides, I understand, a little bit the availability to add audience. If you had a presentation going out here, they can zoom in on that too. So you are streaming tonight. Eventually you'll have 2 cameras again, but that was the out of the box, didn't cost hardly anything, and they did all the installation and configuration themselves.
That's tremendous. I really appreciate
I
that.
noticed Randy's not behind the box. I looked online. So normally you're kind of in the box. Now the box is below you.
Yes. Okay, great. Council, anything for staff? I'm going to start with Lee. You're on the clock, man.
Okay, the only thing I was going to ask about is the camera, and so I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Vice President Melton.
I got nothing.
I like it.
Nothing.
Nothing from Todd.
No.
Uh-oh. Randy Gregorsi, going to keep the trend up?
No.
Ah!
I'll be brief, but I'm looking for a process update on the city administrator.
Yes.
And I just had a financial question for Matt.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to talk to Mark in advance of this, so I apologize in advance. But on the pilot, does 1 percentage point equal about $100,000? On the electric franchise, correct.
Hold on, let me calculate that real quick for you.
I just did back of the napkin,
It's
so.
about 100, I think this year was or 2018 was 830,000.
Okay.
For 5%, so.
Okay,
So it's a little more, it's about 120,000, 130,000.
that's all I had.
Okay. In answer to your first question, you wanted an update on the process. Would it be better to get for you or for Danica to get this? I think.
But I saw an email earlier today.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say,
Yes.
So let's use round dates because I don't remember everything, but roughly we're taking up, it's all been posted, and Alan did check to make sure it was posted all the places we asked for.
I saw the listing myself.
Yeah, we will take applications until February 1st, and that's the first stop. And then we'll review those applications. Roughly, the selection committee, from what I was trying to put together on the guideline today, looked like it was between the weeks of the 11th through the 22nd, and narrow it down for the rest of you. So they said by April 1, I think that's still a little too aggressive. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. That's what they're shooting for.
Yeah. So are we, I think that we've kind of come to the conclusion that we're going to need to probably appoint a second interim once your term ends in March 22nd. because of the fact that we're gonna have a little bit of a gap. So we've already started that process, Randy. I know that you had asked that before. And so we're already proactively looking at that and seeing what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Nope, not a problem. All right, anything from you, Mr. Baldwin?
When I timed it, it'll only take 13 minutes.
Sweet.
I only have one thing.
That's 13
So
minutes.
at our retreat in November of 2017,
Yes.
I brought up some sort of a tracking plan on the website for various projects, and when we do something, and like this redevelopment in downtown with the CID and the TIF, that you could see that it got delayed and something like that. And then that was supposed to be the dashboard, and that kind of didn't happen.
G3.
So with the Southwest Johnson County agreements and with the chamber and all of the details that they have to lay out and now say that they're going to do, I feel like this is a good opportunity to put that on the site, our site, and have those as check boxes. This will be done here and has been done, so that the public can see it, and then we can track it, and then maybe that could be our inroads to where you can link from there to the ordinance or whatever additional notes, and kind of do that kind of accountability.
I like it.
Well, I think the G3 dashboard is, I think it's still there. I mean, we're still tracking metrics, are we not, Matt?
Yeah, that's more for like big picture, like, do we get certain projects done, or basically satisfaction data, that type of metrics.
Right.
It's not for agenda items step by step.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty much buried too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It would be
hard to
nice
get
for, a resident to be able to look at the agenda and say, I know I've heard about this before, we talked about it, or why does it say this in 2016 we did this, click, right, and ding ding.
Did they look at those?
All right.
It'd be nice.
No, I think anything that gives us more transparency and accountability.
I don't know how
is a
we
good
want to
thing.
proceed with that, but
We can talk about it.
Mark, given all
Well,
problems, no
let
solutions.
the staff magicians do their thing.
sounds great.
And get Amy on that, Amy Foster on that, and Danica, and see if we can.
It's a team thing.
It is a team thing.
It's everybody.
Exactly.
We're all gonna work.
I guess along those same lines, I would like more visibility of G3 and just
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, something on the front page that shows the G3 dashboard link.
There are plans for it. G3 was one of the main reasons we won that ICMA Performance Management Award.
Mhm.
But there's parts that we have to follow up on. Like, we haven't done our last quarterly update for that, which is gonna be big. And it's kind of just reviewing where we are in our strategic plan.
Okay. Well, do we know when the timetable is for that? Just
This
curious.
quarter, basically.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
We still got
Well,
10 minutes, man.
what?
He said he was gonna do 15, so.
I was just messing with you.
Okay.
So
Well, I'm not going to, yeah, I know. Yeah, I do have my couple of moments here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give the folks out there a heads up. We're having, I mean, if it keeps blowing up like it's been every single year since Danica's gotten here with regard to the Martin Luther King program, it's going to be something really special this year. So that's going to be happening on Friday the 18th and Monday the 21st. It'll be a 2-day deal again. We usually have a nice exhibit in this room. We have a workshop. We have some multimedia presentations and some things for the kids to do, and some neat little trinkets that we bring that the kids can have or that the adults can have. And it's just a really neat way to bring people together on a really uniting theme. And so I would very strongly encourage folks. I know the kids have the day off from school on Monday, so let them come out here and learn about just a really extraordinary person and diversity and equality. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. That's all I had.
The kids can't come on Monday, right? It's
Yes, they
closed?
can.
City Hall's closed?
Nope, we're open.
Okay.
I'm here.
City
You're
Hall
here.
is open for the exhibit. The exhibit is open.
That's all that's.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. All right. Without further ado, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Go Go ahead, Lee.
Motion Moore, second motion Melton, second Moore. That we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned.
We just have to schedule every meeting with a football game. Is that what's going on?